evening, YouTube. Today we're going to talk about how to make a deer attractant that's super cost effective, lasts about 3 weeks in the woods, and it's pretty easy to make. First, what you're going to need is a screw, because you can actually screw this deer attractant to a tree. You're going to need a paint stirrer from Lowe's. You're going to need to go out and purchase some bulk molasses. You can get it from like a feed mill, or you can get it from like, I don't know, like a horse stable or something. They usually have molasses. You could possibly purchase it from the grocery store, but it's seemingly more expensive from the grocery store. You're going to need a small Tupperware container to use as a mold. You're going to need salt, sugar, and butter, and that's about it. Now for the recipe we're going to be doing today, you're going to need 2 cups of sugar, 1 cup of water, 3 tablespoons butter, 1 cup molasses, and 1 tablespoon salt. If we go over here to the stove, I already have my water in there. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is turn your stove on high, and you're going to want to mix all of your liquid ingredients into the pot. Now be careful, because the molasses is actually pretty messy to deal with. As you can see, when I dipped it out of a bucket, I had to get a plate to put underneath of it so I didn't spill it everywhere. Next thing you're going to want to add is your physical parts to the recipe. You just want to dump your sugar in there, kind of spread it around a little bit. You're going to need a mixing spoon to mix all this together. I prefer a plastic mixing spoon. It seems to work more efficiently. You got to make sure you put this butter in there. It's a very important part. Without the butter, you don't get the recipe to what's called the crack point. Essentially, you're making hard candy for deer, which is kind of funny. Now, another thing to keep in mind is, when you're doing this recipe, it is very important that you get this liquid up to 280 degrees Fahrenheit. It's extremely hot, so you have to be extremely careful. The recipe I found online actually recommended using a candy thermometer. Since I don't have a candy thermometer, I have one of these thermometers right here. It's just a digital thermometer. Works out pretty good. If you got one, use it. What you want to do is take a little bit of time, stir all of the ingredients in until it becomes a very viscous liquid. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to boil this up to 280 degrees. I'm going to say it like several million times. 280 degrees. If you do not get it to 280 degrees, it will not harden. I think the whole thing that you're trying to do here is you're trying to get rid of all of the water that is in the actual mixture. That way you just leave the sugars that are left there from the molasses, and of course the sugar, and you want your solids there. And that's how you get this to set up. Okay, just wanted to show you how high this stuff actually boils up, because when I got the recipe off the internet, I didn't realize how high it would go, but it does go very high. So don't be alarmed by that, but use a pot with, you know, higher sides. That way you don't boil over. You boil over with this stuff, you're never going to get it off your stove. It's never going to come off there, just so you know. We're getting a little bit closer to the crack point, but it doesn't get there real fast. It kind of crusts around 220, something like that, and then it boils for a good while. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but you actually see steam rolling off of it. That's just the water boiling out of the mixture. So you see less steam once it gets closer up to the 280. Okay, we have reached 280 degrees Fahrenheit. What I'm going to do is turn this off very carefully, and then I'm going to move this off this burner. Alright, now that we've moved this to this back burner and it's stopped boiling profusely, what we're going to do is let that cool for just a second. Then we're going to pour it into our mold. But and I would like to stress this. This is very hot liquid. The mold will stand up to it, but you want it in the sink just in case you have a blowout. If you have a blowout, it goes into the sink. Not a real big deal. Okay. Note the pot holders here, because this is very hot. What we're going to do is just dump it straight into our mold. And then, since I don't like to waste anything, I'm going to scoop as much of this out of here as I can. Another thing is too, you want to scoop that out of there for cleanup. Now, when you go to clean this stuff up, all you have to do is get it wet with a little bit of cold water, and it will harden, and you can just chip it off. It's not really difficult. Okay, what I've done here is I let this cool, and I took the screw, see the screw down there in the center part? I screwed it into the paint stirrer, and I broke the paint stirrer so I could wedge it in there to keep it from sinking into the viscous liquid. What'll happen is if you just stick the screw in there, even after it's set up for a little bit, it's kind of like quicksand. It just sucks that thing straight up in there, and then you never see it again. You gotta break the mold, you know, in two in order to get the thing out. So I decided to use a paint stirrer just to hold it up and keep it out of there. But that is what the paint stirrer is for. You let this set up, I would say about 8-10 hours, something like that. It gets harder than a rock. It's kind of hard to get out of there, but once you get it out, you ain't getting that screw out of there. That thing's stuck in there good. You can screw it straight to a tree, and hopefully the deer will be coming in no time. Thanks for watching another one of my videos, and I hope you guys learned a little bit of something about making a deer attractant.